Welcome to the program. This is the Gavel. I am Benny Ark. The Minister of State for Petroleum appeared before the Joint National Assembly Committee on Petroleum and Gas for the defense of the ministry's budget. Here's how it went down.
It was a full house as the Joint National Assembly Committee on Petroleum and Gas awaited the arrival of the Ministers of State for Petroleum for the defense of the ministry's budget. After waiting for a while, the lawmakers became fed up and angrily expressed their disappointment and refused the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Petroleum from representing the ministers.
I felt so disappointed. The same reasons yesterday we shifted this meeting. Today again, we've not seen them. And I don't think it's good for our democracy. And I don't think it's good for us. We cannot keep shifting. Maybe they are not ready.
In our view, and from the inactions of these two ministers of state in the oil and gas sector, it's like they are taking the presidential instructions for granted. They are also taking the sanctity of this institution where the sovereignty of the people lies in also for granted.
A motion to receive the ministers at a later date is then moved and adopted.
Due to absence of the two ministers or three ministers in this our meeting, we should, with that explanation, yes, the committee should adjourn this sitting till Monday.
Meanwhile, at a separate budget defense session, the House Committee on Public Procurement adopts the 2.2 billion naira of the Bureau for Public Procurement.
The committee will intensify its oversight function with the aim of strengthening the Bureau to build and sustain an efficient procurement system that meets international best practices. Let me also seize this opportunity to remind us that the National Assembly is working on the amendment of the Public Procurement Act 2007 to reflect present day's realities and to meet best practices.
The House of Representatives Committee on Appropriations on Monday continued to push for an increase in the projected 18 trillion naira, which is meant to fund the 2024 budget. Lawmakers met with the Ministers of Finance, Budget and National Planning.
As a percentage of GDP is still under 10% compared to the average for the African countries, which is nearer 15 to 18%, and in some cases it's even over 25%.
The committee secured a commitment from the Nigeria Customs Service and other revenue-generating agencies to increase their initially projected revenue.
We are targeting 5, but it's not impossible for us to make 6. The concession that we talked about, if we are able to review the concessions that we are going to grant in 2024, we might get there.
We'll be glad if you can improve from that 5 point something, maybe to 6 trillion or something. I'm sure even the president will be proud of that. We'll be very happy to see that the Nigerian custom will come up with almost 6 trillion.
Meanwhile, at a separate meeting between the Controller General of the Nigeria Customs Service and the House Committee on Customs, lawmakers raised questions bordering on the operations of the service.
But I agree it's one for tourism, yes. And I can tell you today that with the things your main subject, people who intend or who come towards that axis, it's enough to discourage a whole lot of people from coming towards Badagry.
In my own record, we have only 11 recognized checkpoints. And I'm saying that even the 11 is still unacceptable.
I have 4 summary of the presentation of projects by the former CGC. And in all the 4, he mentioned that the first set of scanners that we arrived in Nigeria for the e-custom is 135 scanners.
The Minister of Solid Minerals, Mr. Dele Alake, is alleging that powerful Nigerians involved in illegal mining are sponsoring banditry and terrorism in the country. He stated this when he appeared before the House of Representatives Committee on Solid Minerals for the Ministry's 2024 Budget Defense in Abuja on Tuesday. Mr. Alake is also alleging that foreigners also engage in illegal mining in the country.
One pernicious discovery that we made, Mr. Chairman, is that a lot of these banditries, terrorisms, insecurities that we associate with this sector are actually sponsored by illegal miners. Now, these illegal miners are not your artisanal miners. They are not the people who pick gold rusts on the ground. No. These are heavy, powerful individuals in our country. And they are Nigerians.
The budget defense sessions continued in the House of Representatives as the Committee of Defense received the Chief of Defense Staff on Wednesday. Beyond conversations around the budget, the Chief of Defense seized the moment to speak on the bombing attack in Kaduna State.
It was never deliberate, but we're taking steps to ensure that we address it and so that it doesn't reoccur. We are meant to protect our citizens, not to kill them. And that is highly regrettable. And then we assure you that we'll continue to work until everybody is free and there's no more threats to any life or property in Nigeria.
When we talk about synergy, we should talk about synergy. Indeed, we should be able to see and smell it. So this parliament is going to take very proactive steps to ensure that we see synergy.
Meanwhile, the House Committee on Women Affairs and Social Development has hosted a Women Stakeholders Conference on Women Empowerment and Sustainable Policy Document. The Women Affairs Minister, who represented the wife of the President, was particularly concerned about the wasteful spendings by the government.
$10 million could be spent on just meetings, advocacies, travelings, and we're seeing it. Instead of us to focus on it, what all of us are doing, please include me, I want to go. So that they get something. That little money you get and your country is going down by the day. Nobody cares.
In the meantime, more committees have continued to hold their inaugural sessions in preparation for the budget defense of the MDAs they oversight.
The committee will vigorously enjoin the agency to do more in their research into defense and security sector, agricultural sector, and infrastructure sector, which in turn will save and bring in the much needed foreign earnings that will impact positively in the socio-economic development of our nation.
Meanwhile, more committees have continued to hold their inaugural sessions.
The 2024 budget is enough to exit the project, that's one. Then the GBA dam, whether the money allocated in the budget is sufficient to exit the dam. This is what he asked, because your attention was not... There
are some dams that we look at it that are very critical, that are needed for irrigation in Nigeria. So we have highlighted them in our own documents, in the Directorate of Dams. So we are looking at it at this line project now. We will now use it in looking at, trying to see how we can revive those dams that has challenges.
Still on the National Assembly Joint Committee, the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Yemi Cardoso, appeared before the Joint Committee on Banking, Insurance and Other Financial Institutions over the 2024 budget of the Apex Bank. Let's take a look.
On Thursday, the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Yemi Cardoso, appeared before the National Assembly Joint Committee on Banking, Insurance and Other Financial Institutions over the 2024 budget of the Apex Bank.
I would like you to know that we are yet to receive the statutory reports, both the audited reports, management accounts for 2023, and even the budget estimates.
With the industry. At the statutory briefing, the CBN boss shared the outlook for the domestic economy in 2024.
Inflation pressures may persist in the short term, but is expected to decline in 2024. Exchange rate pressures are also expected to reduce significantly with a smooth functioning of the foreign exchange market. We expect less revenue from oil exports due to the production limit of 1.78 million barrels per day in 2024. And our focus on increasing the autonomous FX supply would lead to more stability.
You also have...
At another session, the National Assembly Joint Committee on Niger Delta met with the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs. Lamentations over the paucity of funds prevailed, while the panel queried the budget performance, as well as the preponderance of abandoned projects in the region.
I've also asked our staff to identify among these projects the ones that are still reasonable, but the ones I measure about 50 billion. That is some of them have been abandoned over, even since there are some who were awarded contracts in 2009 when the ministry was established 2010, and they could not perform because they were not funded.
A lot of MDAs, agencies of the government have received close to 80-90%. My colleagues can testify to that. When you go through your budget proposals, you will see literally a project 2030, 2015, 20. What impact do those projects have on our people? Look at the 2023, jeopardize it with the 2022, the same story. The problem lies in the ministry.
Whatever you have brought today is just budget. We are going to overhaul it for us to have something that is acceptable.
The minister assured the committee that there will be significant infrastructural development in the Niger Delta under his watch. The Minister of Finance within the week appeared before the Senate Committee on Finance.
It was what the 2023 budgets, both the first supplementary budget that we did, the second supplementary budget, and the national budget performances.
There's emphasis on domestic resource mobilization, not just tax revenue or revenue from government at all levels, government organizations, government departments, revenue earning departments and agencies. But also, the emphasis is on savings.
He stated that the federal government might consider an increase in the budget.
There is a Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform Committee which is already at work, which is meant to provide fundamental change. If we have a solid revenue performance, we will be coming back, and I'm sure Mr. President would authorize and process the return to the National Assembly to appropriate the extra revenue. That is a situation we are all looking forward to.
Separately, the Minister of Works, Mr. Dave Umahi, who appeared before a National Assembly Joint Committee on Works, appraised the committee of the ministry's new policy to prevent excessive contract augmentation.
By giving us a very high cost, of 350,000 per meter cubed, I think it's unreasonable. But we've allowed it in a number of critical routes, like the Lokoja to Benin, the entire East-West Road. But 2024 projects, apart from palliatives and emergency repairs, will be on concrete.
He revealed that the ministry will insert the insurance provision of a 15-year shelf-life insurance guarantee for works and a maximum of 5% variation for price clause in contracts. On Wednesday, it was the turn of the National Judicial Council to appear before the National Assembly Joint Committee on Judiciary and Human Rights. The secretary of the council was flanked by representatives from all the courts at the various levels, and the one issue that dominated the conversation was the allocation to the judiciary.
Mr. Chairman, this is like a SOS presentation for the Nigerian judiciary. If we are really serious about justice administration in this country, this honorable and distinguished assembly has to do something urgently to save the soul of Nigerian judiciary.
This project has failed. This project cannot be implemented. It cannot work. We cannot turn the judiciary arm of government to beggars.
Joint Committee of the Senate and the House of Representatives has resolved without a single voice of dissent to invite the Minister of National Planning and the DG Budget to appear before this committee unfailingly tomorrow.
In another panel session, The Senate queried the management of Assets Management Company of Nigeria, AMCON, over a 145 billion naira loss in 12 months, as submitted to the Senate Committee on Banking, Insurance, and Other Financial Institutions.
I am a bit astonished by the fact that your balance sheet isn't looking good at all.
The senators were no less satisfied when the AMCON chief told the panel that his administration has recovered about 648 billion naira out of the agency's 5 trillion naira total liability in 2023.
Welcome back. You're still watching The Gavel. Now, after a break in continuity, the Upper Legislative Chamber resumes plenary to deliberate on the 2024 Appropriation Bill.
The Upper Legislative Chamber resumes plenary after 2 weeks hiatus to deliberate on the 2024 Appropriation Bill. In a motion moved by the Deputy Senate President, the Upper Legislative Chamber adopted the resolution to forfeit their salaries for the month of December.
Mr. President, I feel I should report to the entire Senate that we made that visit and were able to condole and sympathize with the governor and indeed the entire people of Kaduna State, particularly the people of Tudumbiri of Igabi local government. And may I recall, Mr. President, that in our meeting before we left, it was agreed that we should make a pledge.
Those who are in support of this pledge that we do suspend receipt of our December salary to assist the victims both ways, the survivors and those who have lost their dear ones. Can you say aye? Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
The Senate approves the nomination of Ambassador Desmond Akawo as Commissioner representing Rivers State in the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission. The Senate also announced the President's request seeking confirmation of nomination of 19 commissioners for the National Population Commission. The Senate referred the nominations to the Committee on National Identity Management Commission, NIMSI, to report back in 2 weeks.
In accordance with the provisions of Section 154, subsection 1 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, I am pleased to present for confirmation by the Senate the appointments of the underlisted 19 commissioners of the National Population Commission. Number 1, Honorable Emmanuel Trump, Eke, Abia State. This is a new appointment. Number 2, Dr. Clifford Zira, Zirra, Dr. Clifford Zira, Adamawa State, reappointment. Number 3, Mr. Chidi Christopher Ezeoke, Anambra State, reappointment. While hoping that this request will receive the usual expeditious consideration of the Senate, please accept, distinguished Senate President, the assurances of my highest consideration. Yours sincerely. This is signed by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. This correspondence is referred to the Committee on National Identity and Population Commission.
Plenary adjourns to the 20th of December to continue with budget deliberations on the 2024 Appropriation Bill.
On Constituent Focus, we speak with Senator Mohammed Monguno, representing Borno North Senatorial District, Borno State. He tells us about his aspirations, challenges, and plans for his constituents.
You know, my constituency happens to be the epicenter of the Boko Haram insurgency. And as a result of that, there is a lot of devastation occasioned by the Boko Haram insurgency of our infrastructure. Our people have been displaced. Some are staying as internally displaced persons. Some have moved to other countries as refugees and what have you. And now, as a result of the the zeal, the patriotism, and the sacrifice of the Nigerian military occasioned by the political will given by the last administration, the Boko Haram has been greatly decimated now. And people are now returning back to their respective communities with a view to picking the pieces of their lives. So as a result of that, my focus will be on coming up with a Marshall Plan that its philosophical cornerstone will be reconstruction, rehabilitation, and resettlement. That is going to be my focus, especially against the backdrop of the fact that the people are now going back to their respective communities as a result of decimation of the Boko Haram insurgency. So I'm going to embark towards that drive. I'm going to embark upon massive empowerment, training and empowerment of youths and women on various aspects of agriculture. So that, because my people are agrarian in nature, so train them, empower them on various aspects of agriculture that they are used to. And then because of the fact that our economy is in a very serious, is in a state of comatose as a result of the Boko Haram insurgency, this training and empowerment of youth and women will go a long way in revitalizing the economy of our area. And also the reconstruction of our devastated infrastructure like schools, hospitals, and what have you will go a long way, not only in bringing back this infrastructure, but it will bring about a lot of multiplier effects, generate a lot of multiplier effects in the economy, because the youths are going to be busy in the construction projects and what have you. So it is going to generate a lot of multiplier activities with all its attendant advantage of creating employment and what have you. So my focus in a nutshell will be rehabilitation and resettlement, and this is purely as a result of the Boko Haram insurgency that has devastated my constituency. I am in the National Assembly for the past 20 years before my graduation into the Senate this year. So all along I have maintained a constituency office in Monguno local government. This is in the state locus. And I have people that are resident in the place, in the local government, in the local government, giving me feedback on what is happening in my constituency. And whenever people have problem, they will report to them, and then they will communicate same to me.
That's our time on the program this week, and we would love to hear from you. Send us an email at thegavel@channelstv.com. Until the Gavel comes your way next week, same time, I am Benny Ark. Be well.